Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha. श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयम् करुणालयम् नमामि भगवत्पादम् शङ्करम् लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करम् शङ्कराचार्यम् केशवम् बादरायणम् सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओम श्री मेधा दक्षिणामूर्ति स्वामिने नमः। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। वार्ताय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुवन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्ख्यपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Om. So namaste once again everyone.
Namaskaram Guruji.
Namaskaram.
Today is Gita Jayanti also.
Yeah.
As also, I think Guruvayur Ekadashi.
Today, Guruvayur Ekadashi also. Correct. Very true. Very auspicious day today.
Day, yes.
Yeah, that is true.
Kaushika Ekadashi.
Yeah, Kaushika Ekadashi also. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, very nice. In fact, I am in Coimbatore in Nana Nani. We had this Shasta Preeti here today.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So many nice things happening. So good.
Amongst all the confusions in the world.
Yeah, confusions. Let there be confusion. We have nothing to do with that. That is what we are actually discussing in the second chapter in this portion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Indriya Nigraha. Just like the tortoise, withdraw everything, all your sense organs into yourself. Be with yourself. That is what is Krishna saying. Don't get into all these, don't be carried away by all these confusions. Anyhow, so we are actually in the second chapter, and it's a very important chapter. As I told you, it is the summary of the entire Gita teaching. And in this chapter, there are three significant portions. The first portion, Krishna teaches Arjuna about Atma Vidya, about Atma and what exactly the nature of Atma is. In the second portion, Krishna dealt with Karma Yoga, important aspects of Karma Yoga, which of course he is going to further elaborate in the later chapters. Now, in response to a question from Arjuna, Krishna is now expounding the characteristics, traits, or the lifestyle of a jnani, of a sthira prajna or sthita prajna. And in this portion, in this last portion of the second chapter, he deals with two topics. One is the sthira prajna lakshanani And the other is Sthira Prajna Sadhanani. What are the sadhanas, prescribed sadhanas, which a prajna, a person who has got the knowledge, but still the knowledge has not been fully assimilated, what are the sadhanas he needs to undertake? So as I said, Sthira Prajna Lakshanani means the natural behavior or traits of a person who has received the teaching and has assimilated that teaching. He has become from a prajna to a sthira prajna. So the prefix sthira is used to indicate the assimilation of this teaching. It is just like, the assimilated food alone will nourish a person. Similarly, assimilated Vedanta alone will be of practical use to us. Otherwise, it is just a theoretical knowledge and at the intellectual level, good for discussion, debate, and explaining to people. Personally, it is of no use. Unless whatever we have learned with Shraddha, that is converted, that is assimilated completely in our day-to-day lifestyle. Any years spent on Vedanta, listening to Gita, Upanishads and all, just entertainment Vedanta, as I call it. To keep yourself busy in some activity or the other, this is one of those, of no practical use. And as we saw in the last class, what is this assimilation? Assimilation is converting the knowledge at the intellectual level into emotional strength. Because it is only an emotionally strong mind which will not be swayed by kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, etc. So whenever we refer to sthira prajna, it means we are referring to a person who has got an emotionally strong mind. So how he will conduct himself was the first portion of this topic. And the second topic is how the knowledge should be converted. How of it? How the knowledge should be converted into assimilation. For that, certain preconditions were there. One, the knowledge has to be gained only in one way. And that method is listening to the scriptures from a competent guide. The Shastras do not support or prescribe any other method of receiving this knowledge. It is only through the study of the scriptures under a competent guru it should be done. In fact, in the 4th chapter, Bhagavan Krishna will emphasize this. Tatvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, he says. So, to learn that, you have to go to a guru, do guru seva. Guru seva itself is great. A great help for diluting your ego. That is why Guru Seva is not that the Guru wants wants to be like a royal king and so many students are doing all Seva for him. Guru he is totally beyond all these things. But Guru will advise Seva for the Sishyas because Guru knows that he himself has done that to his Guru, by which process he has been able to dilute his ego to a great extent that this knowledge which he has gained has been able to be absorbed. He was able to absorb that knowledge. The biggest obstacle to absorbing this knowledge, or even for that matter, having Shraddha in this knowledge, is our ego. The I sense identifying ourselves with this body, mind, sense complex is the biggest obstacle for absorbing this knowledge. But receiving or reception of this knowledge alone is not enough. One has to be, if a person is a serious spiritual seeker, this is all meant for such people only that I am talking about. One has to work within himself. Because the Guru can teach, Guru can guide, he can only take the Shishya up to a stage. Beyond that, even the Guru cannot help in this matter. The Shishya has to work himself. The spiritual seeker has to do a lot of work on his own. Guru can go only up to the transference of the knowledge. But conversion of that knowledge into emotional strength, Shishya alone has to do. Guru, of course, can guide, encourage, but he cannot do anything beyond that. As they say, you can take the horse to the pond, but you cannot make it drink water. But drinking water, the Shishya has to do himself. And in this context, we are discussing 3 sadhanas prescribed by Bhagavan Krishna for a prajna to become a sthira prajna. What are they? We saw nididhyasanam, dwelling upon the teaching, indriya nigraha, regulating the sense organs, and mano nigraha, regulating the thought process. These are very, very important sadhanas to convert the knowledge into emotional strength. And knowledge is gained through Shravanam and Mananam. But this knowledge, which is gained through Shravanam and Mananam, in the initial stages is very weak and is exposed to destruction, like a sapling which is exposed to harsh weather conditions, as well as becoming fodder for grazing animals. And in the previous sloka that we saw, the topic of Indriya Nigraha was started. And Krishna, as I said, will discuss this up to the 61st sloka. So in the 58th sloka, Krishna used the example of a tortoise which withdraws its limbs and head into its shell the moment it senses any existential danger. It remains in the shell till the danger disappears. Because unlike other animals, the turtle does not have any natural weapon to defend itself. Similar is the case for a spiritual seeker. He is struggling to overcome all these impurities which is there in the mind. Is on the one side, he is cleaning the impurities by doing all the sadhanas, karma yoga. He is practicing to purify his mind more and more. And on the other hand, he is working towards being always alert so that these impurities like anger, especially krodha, doesn't resurface. But in that process, like the turtle, the spiritual seeker, the sadhaka, the mumukshu, is also exposed to all kinds of attacks from the outside world. In one way, you can say he is defenseless. He is aware that he should not get into any argument with anybody, because argument will create a lot of emotional disturbance. Therefore, the other person who actually targets this mumukshu and draws him into an argument always has an upper hand. So the condition, status of a mumukshu or a spiritual seeker is just like a turtle which does not have any natural defense mechanism. Therefore, even though a prajna, a person who has received the knowledge, has to transact with the world and can transact with the world freely, but he has to be on God always. The moment he sees there is an occasion where raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, etc. may be provoked or invoked, where the ego can become stronger, where another person deliberately draws him into an argument, a prajna needs to withdraw his sense organs like the tortoise withdraws its limbs whenever there is a threat of distraction. And as we saw, the sources of distractions can be many. It need not necessarily be another human being. Even watching TV programs, watching films, reading books, magazines, newspapers, all these things could be very significant sources of distraction. Even the company of people he keeps, they all have the potential of causing emotional disturbance in him. And such emotional engagements and disturbances are detrimental for his spiritual growth. Therefore, such a person must be extremely careful in exercising his choices for allowing his sense organs to reach out to the sense object. And the moment some threat to the emotional balance is perceived, the prajna must immediately withdraw his sense organs like the tortoise withdraws its limbs. He must be very choosy regarding his sensory interactions. This is a very, very important sadhana, and this has to be practiced initially deliberately. Over a period of time, when a spiritual seeker keeps practicing this, it will become automatic for him. It will become second nature for him. The moment he senses any trouble means there could be hundreds of troubles outside, as somebody mentioned in the beginning of the class. So much of chaos and confusion going on in the world. How do you protect yourself? It's yourself means not physically. I'm talking emotionally from all these that is going on. Only way is withdrawal. Because come what may, whatever is happening in the world, by your worrying about it, by your debating about it with others, or you are arguing about it with others, nothing you do not have the power to change anything. So why are you emotionally getting charged for all these things which is going on in the world? So that is the first sadhana which Bhagavan Krishna prescribes. And in the next sloka, Krishna says that as long as you keep feeding your sensory faculties with enjoyment of sensory pleasures, those will keep growing only. The more you feed, the more they will grow. Anything that you want to grow, you have to feed something, right? Same is the same with our sensory pleasures also. Then he answers the question, what makes them drop off? So he says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. The Anvaya of this sloka is, Vishaya hai rasavarjam vinivartante dehinah niraharasya. Asya rasah api nivartate drishtva param. Or param drishtva, you can say. So here, Vishaya means the sense objects. Rasavarjam means accept the fancy for them. Vinivartante, drop off. Dehinaha, for a person. Niraharasya, who is not enjoying them. Asya rasaha api, even this fancy of this person for the sense objects, nivartate, drops off, drishtva param, after seeing the Supreme or after understanding the Supreme. So the sense objects, except for the fancy for them, drop off for a person who is not enjoying them. And even this fancy, even though the sense objects may get dropped off, the fancy for them may linger on for a longer time. Even this fancy will drop off after knowing the Supreme. So here, Krishna says, addiction to anything is of two types. One is sensory addiction, which is direct. Sense organs contacting with sense objects. When we get some pleasure, some satisfaction out of that, we continue to do the same thing again and again and again. That is one type of addiction. Another type of addiction is the mental addiction. Mental addiction is deeper than sensory addiction. Therefore, even if a person gives up a sensory addiction, but still mental addiction lingers for some time. And that is why, many people quit certain habit. The spur of the moment, they will quit that habit. Somebody says, oh, you have been smoking is not good for you. Then this fellow will say, from tomorrow, I will not smoke. He gives up that habit. That is easier. But maintaining that is extremely difficult job during that period. Therefore, people who want to really leave, like alcoholics, smoking, so many people who are addicted and all, during that period following their leaving this, must be extremely careful, because once he violates, he will get back to the habit very easily rather. And therefore Krishna says, even after removing the sensory addiction, one has to be careful. Because the mind, the impressions which are caused in the mind, which is what is referred to here as rasam, they linger on for a long time and they will force, because they miss that all the pleasures which they were supposedly getting earlier, they will constantly put pressure on the mind to go back to the old state. Because for the mind to accept any change is a big challenge. That is the weakness of the mind. Therefore, anytime a person can again get into that weakness. Therefore, he says, Vishayaha vinivartante, the sense objects, the objects of addiction, remain away for a person who renounced them. Physically, they may remain from him, but rasavarjam here means the fancy, mental fancy for those objects. They do not go away easily. The yearning for those objects lingers for quite some time. In fact, Swami Paramarthananda says that many people, on the spur of the moment, they become sannyasis. And they go to Rishikesh, Uttarakashi and all those places. They have given up their grihastha life. But what happens? Afterwards, whenever they come across any grihastha, they envy them. And many of them feel that they have committed a mistake by taking to sannyasa. Because sannyasa life is an extremely difficult life. Unless you are mentally completely prepared. And in that mental preparedness, some degree of indifference is also involved. You are cutting your ties away from your family, from your near and dear ones, from your friends. Because converting, as I used to say, conversion of the special relationship into general relationship is not that easy. But that is what has to be done in a spiritual journey, rather. That is how we will get to do all these things. What needs to be done? These are all qualifications we have to acquire. All these things Krishna will talk about in the 4th chapter also, rather. That's why many people become physical sannyasis, but mentally they are dwelling upon only worldly pleasures. Their attachment is very difficult to give up. Pujya Swamiji used to narrate one nice story to us, which happened in Rishikesh. There was one sannyasi who came to Pujya Swamiji and told him that he needs a blanket. He doesn't have a blanket, he needs a blanket. So Pujya Swamiji said, no problem, I will arrange to give you a blanket. But how you have been managing all along, without a blanket? Rishikesh winter and all will be very cold. He says, all along I was sleeping in my room, but now my room has become full, so I have to sleep outside in the veranda of my cottage, and that is more cold, so that's why I need a blanket. Swamiji said, what? Your room has become full? So Swamiji thought that he should visit his cottage. So when Swamiji went and visited that cottage, he found that his room was full of cartons and these empty bottles and things like that and all. He had just collected all of that. Sannyasi had collected all of them and stacked in his room. He himself doesn't have a place to sleep in that room, so he is sleeping outside. Then Pujya Swamiji, it seems, asked him, why are you keeping all these things? Why don't you throw them away? And he said, no, these are all very useful things. Many times they are very useful. Suppose I go for a bhiksha and I need a bottle to bring some liquid stuff. I take a bottle from here and all that. So Pujya Swamiji used to quote this. Even after becoming sannyasi, all these grihastha habits of, hoarding things, collecting things, all useless things, that habit, that mental, makeup doesn't go away easily. And that is why Mahatma's advice, it is better for a person to remain in the world and become a mature person and slowly grow out of all these things, attachments and all that, slowly gain vairagya. One should not suppress these mental feelings. That is why we say growing out is more important. Suppression is dangerous. If you suppress, the rasa will continue. Rasa means what? Fancy or desire or craving, yearning, urge. That urge for that sense object continues. Only physically the sense object would have gone, but when this rasa also goes, Krishna says, asya rasa api nivartante. Even this craving for sense pleasures will go away when the mind's vacuum is replaced by spiritual Ananda. In fact, all this craving, this addiction, if you look at it, people have this only for one purpose. They somehow have a feeling that this gives them happiness, Ananda. That addiction or this craving, if these sense objects for which they have a fancy, they feel that if the more they enjoy that, the more Ananda they are getting. Because they do not know anything about spiritual Ananda, the real Ananda, the Purna Ananda. So they go behind all these things. So once a spiritual seeker understands this, then he will know what is to be done, and that is what Krishna is teaching him. This is what you have to do, Arjuna. If you want to become a spiritual seeker, these are all things you have to be careful about. Because spiritual Ananda is a very superior Ananda. And Shastra gives such an Ananda. In fact, many people think when they look at a sannyasi, that's why, many people have a respect for sannyasis, not because of their knowledge or anything, but because they feel the sannyasi deserves their sympathy. Poor guy, he has left his family, everything. He has nothing, so let me be sympathetic and help him. This is the attitude of many people towards sannyasis. Why even sannyasis? Even when I tell people about the life in Gurukulam, 3.5 years that I spent, no TV, no movie, even newspaper, only one newspaper will come in the office. If you want to read the newspaper, you use your lunchtime, half an hour or so, go and sit there in the office and read the newspaper. You can't wear the dress you want. I mean, dress codes are very strict. Simple, normal. It is not that you cannot wear colored dresses, but you cannot wear fancy dresses, shorts, all those kind of things. And it is very difficult for people to understand such a lifestyle. And they have pity for such people. And everybody sympathizes because they think that the regular worldly pleasures are not there. They don't understand that life in a Gurukulam is a rehearsal for a sannyasi lifestyle. You are required to perform all that a sannyasi is required to perform. You are given duties as sadhanas for you to dilute your ego. You might have been a chief executive officer in some company, or you might have been, an youngster having a very bright future, an MBA, an IIT graduate. But when you come to the Gurukulam, you have to give up all that attitude which has been formed because of all that lifestyle, and adopt to a very simple lifestyle of the Gurukulam. Even food, you cannot demand, I want this food, that food. They don't give you a menu. Choose what you want to eat. Whatever is cooked there, you will get. Whether it is tasty, not tasty, you have to get used to all those things. But for a real sannyasi, who has consciously developed vairagyam and he has become a sannyasi in the real sense, the ananda that he can get through Shastra, which is called Vidyananda, that he can derive, is much, 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 much more higher than the petty, paltry, miserable worldly pleasures. And until that spiritual ananda is discovered, this craving, this yearning, for worldly pleasures will continue. And that's why Krishna says, Param Drishtva, Paradarshanam means Atmajnana Drishtikaranam. When the spiritual knowledge is well assimilated, he gets such a joy that in front of that joy, all other worldly pleasures become insignificant. If you recall in one of the earlier slokas, Yava Nartha Udapane, when a person has got a lake full of water, why should he go for some small pond water or well water, or for that matter, the miserable corporation water in Chennai, which may come, which may not come? Swami Paramatmananda says in many places, the tap is like a combination of Brahman and Maya. You open the tap and any one of the 5 elements will come, Panchabhudam. When nothing comes, it is Akasha Tattva. If sometimes air comes, that is just a sound will come, a whistling sound. That is Vayu Tattva. Sometimes you open the tap, stone, mud and all muck will come, Prithvi Tattva. So any one of the Tattva is always there. So whether water will be there or not is anybody's guess. So how long should we go for that? He said, dig your own bore well. Have continuous supply of water. Discover that lake of Ananda which never goes dry. And therefore, Param Drishtva, after discovering the Ananda in himself, Nivartante, Rasavarjam Nivartante, even whatever is left, that also no more craving is there, everything goes away. But we must be careful in understanding, it does not mean that he should not be happy in worldly occasions. It is not a denial, it is outgrowing. There's a basic difference we have to understand between denying oneself the worldly pleasures and outgrowing the worldly pleasures for a higher purpose. Denial is suppression. Outgrowing is spiritual growth. Because this also is many times greatly misunderstood. Suppose a person is happy in himself and there is an occasion for getting some external or worldly happiness. So for example, somebody calls him for a wedding, somebody says, I've got a child, etc. It's a happy occasion for sharing. But many people think that a jnani should keep away from all these things. He should not even smile. Because he is a jnani. He has got Paramananda, he has got the greatest happiness. So he should not indulge in this kind of worldly happiness. If somebody narrates a joke, a jnani should keep quiet. He should not smile. High chin he should keep, high brow. These are all thinking of people. Huh? Then suppose a jnani is there, a Mahatma is there, there is somebody he cracks a joke and he laughs aloud. These people will go ahead and say, what kind of Mahatma he is? All these silly jokes and all, he laughs. And what kind of knowledge he has gained? These kind of comments, they are real. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not making up these things. They are all very real. They look for every opportunity to put this Mahatma in such a high pedestal that the poor guy is isolated there. He is not supposed to come down and enjoy and be with the people. Therefore, spiritual Ananda does not mean that we should not enjoy the worldly pleasures. I mean legitimate worldly pleasures, I'm saying. Don't take it otherwise. Only difference is, I should not lean on them. I should not be depending on the worldly pleasures for my happiness. If they come, they are bonus ananda. But whether it comes or it does not come, I am always in a happy state of mind. Earlier we saw, one example of a cricket match, a 5-match series, and one team has already won the 3 matches. Now 2 more matches to go. It does not matter whether they win or they lose. But still, they will play to win, because that victory will add to the happiness which they already have of having won the trophy. But if they don't win, no problem. Nothing is going to change for them. So this is what we have to understand, rather. Therefore, Jnani enjoys the world also, but the worldly enjoyment, he treats them as a bonus to him. He does not depend on that. Therefore, rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate, he says. So next sloka. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitah indriyani pramatini haranti prasabham manah. 60th sloka reached. Anvaya is, He kaunteya, hi pramathini indriyani api vipaschitah purushasya yatatah manah prasabham haranti. He kaunteya, O Arjuna, he indeed, pramathini indriyani, the powerful sense organs. Pramathini, we'll see the meaning of pramathini, interesting meaning. Prasabham haranti, forcibly take away, manaha, the mind. Api vipaschita purushasya, of even a wise person. Yatataha, who is striving. O Arjuna, indeed the powerful sense organs forcibly carry away the mind of even a wise man who is striving. So having told that Indriya Nigraha is important, you must get rid of this residual samskaras, the rasas, which continue to haunt the mind for a long time, or at least for some time, even after giving up the sense objects. Krishna now comes to reality. He says, Arjuna, all these things, don't think it is very, very easy to do. Just because I am telling and you are listening, not that tomorrow you can go and start doing all these things. This sense regulation is not that easy. Managing the sense organs is not that easy, because they dominate our behavior totally during our waking state. When we are awake, one or more sense organs are continuously active, whether it is eyes or ears or nose. Of course, nose is continuously active. Prana, breathing, is continuously active. And these sense organs, they run hither and thither like wild horses. Very difficult to control them. And from this, we learn 2 lessons. One lesson is, as you start these sadhanas, initially, if it fails, we should not feel guilty or we should not get troubled. Because by very nature, the addiction to the sense objects is so powerful, and it has been going on after crores for one birth after the other birth. We don't even know how many crores of births we have taken in the past. And this is the first time we have come to something like Vedanta, and we are trying to analyze, understand all these things. the addiction to the sense objects is so powerful that more often than not, a person is bound to fail in the initial attempts. It is bound to happen. Sit for meditation, for example, with all resolve that I am going to meditate upon this particular alam, this particular object. I am going to meditate upon Lord Vishnu's face or kundalam or anything for that matter. Sit down, close your eyes, bring that visualize that image which you want to meditate and start meditating. Or forget this, I am going to meditate on, let us say, Om. I am just going to meditate on Om, the sound symbol. I am going to repeat Om, Om, Om in my mind. Try that. 10 seconds, 20 seconds afterwards, some thought will immediately come in your mind. From where the thought has come? The thought has come because that is stored in the mind. It is the result of the previous interaction between your sense organs and the sense object. This is bound to happen. It takes a lot of effort to keep your mind calm and focus on the object of meditation. Therefore, if it doesn't work in the initial stages, one need not feel bad. What Krishna wants to emphasize here is that it requires, by saying it is very difficult and all, he says that it requires a lot of alertness. That is what is the lesson we have to learn. Therefore, on the one side, we should know that if we fail, we need not feel guilty. And another side, we should learn that we should always remain alert. Alert with regard to our sensory operation, when we talk, when we hear, when we see, when we move, with regard to all of them rather. In fact, we must develop a sort of an internal mechanism where the movement in interaction takes place between the sense organs and the sense object, and there is an input coming to the mind, we must question, is it helpful for my spiritual growth? If not, just remove it. Control, Alt, delete. That's it. So the alertness is more, which is emphasized more rather than, the failure part of it in the initial stages. So Krishna says, Indriyani pramathini. Pramathini. Pramathi means a churning rod. In Tamil, what they call a mattu. In fact, the word mattu is come from Sanskrit word only, mati. Mati means a churner. Pramathini, they are very powerful, like a churning rod, which is used for churning curd, So it is a very powerful churning rod, these sense organs, and not one, there are 5 of them. They are very powerful. And these 5 rods constantly keep churning the mind. And they can churn the mind into a violent disturbance. Many times, we have experienced just one word spoken by someone, it can disturb the mind for sometimes lifelong. Very close relatives, maybe uncle and nephew or niece or auntie or somebody, close relatives. They have been very nice relationship, but somebody said something which hurt the other person. They stop talking to each other for entire life, or at least for a very long time, for years, just because X and Y said something. And among the 5 sense organs, we must be again careful. Eyes and ears are the most powerful. The nose, the tongue, and the skin, they are not that much harmful. They do not possess that much power. but the eyes and ears are most powerful and dangerous also. Therefore, he says, Manaha Haranti. They can take away your mind from Vedanta totally. They can, what they call, hijack your mind. For example, suppose we are now in this talk. You have heard the talk for 1 hour. Without any distraction, everything that you have been learning is all going into your mind. You are absorbing it. And even after the class, suppose you have some doubts, you get it cleared in the satsanga also. All along, there is no distraction. Nothing is there. But after the class is over, you go out and somebody says something insulting. What will happen? Will you get upset or not? Immediately, all Vedanta will be forgotten. And your mind will immediately dwell on those insulting words which were said. One word can disturb us violently, and it can make us forget everything that we have learned. There are instances where after a talk, people will go out and talk about the Guru also, the Swamiji also. Oh, Swamiji says all these things, but he himself doesn't practice any of these things. If the Swamiji happens to hear it, he must practice this. He must go back to the shloka. I am not going to be disturbed. I am going to keep my ears closed. I'm not going to hear whatever they are saying. That is what he will have to do. Otherwise, he will be letting himself to be a victim for this manas chanchala. Therefore, Krishna says, Manaha prasabham haranti. Forcefully takes away the mind from Gita teaching, from Upanishadic lessons that I have learned. I forget all of them, and temporarily I react violently, shouting in anger, etc. Immediately a sense of revenge, a sense of tit for tat comes up in my mind. That's the way the mind reacts always. I want to give it back to that person for insulting me. And some others who are watching this whole episode suddenly ask, hey, come on, what is the use of your going to all these Gita and Vedanta classes and all? Huh? Especially if it's a spouse, 100% this question will be asked. What is the use? You are still getting angry like you were getting angry earlier. All these are just, you listen to all these things, come and there is no change in you, and we don't see any change in you. Then they will criticize the Guru also. What did he teach? Did he say all these things? That you must get provoked when somebody says something to you? This is another problem. Whatever you do, if you happen to attend these Gita classes and Vedanta classes and all that, unwittingly the Guru will also be dragged into this. Therefore, it not only hurts you, but it hurts the Guru also. Even the Guru himself not feel the hurt. Therefore, if we are not alert, the mind can become turbulent. And if the mind becomes turbulent, what will happen? Vedanta goes for a toss. Therefore, as much as possible, we have to try to keep the balance so that the Vedanta goes inside. And therefore, Krishna's advice is to avoid violent emotional turbulence, because yatataha api, even a person who has a value for sensory restraint, if he is negligent for a moment, the sense organs carry the mind away. The best example for this we find in this philosophical interpretation of an important episode in the Ramayana. In fact, when we understand Ramayana from a philosophical point of view, Rama represents the spiritual Ananda. And Sita is the Jiva. And the Jiva, Sita Jiva was very much with the spiritual Ananda Rama. She was in a state of Brahmananda, which is the spiritual truth. Maricha, the golden deer, represents sensory attraction. Of course, Sita, the Jivas, nature is Ananda. But in spite of that, Rama, in the form of Ananda being around, in a weak movement, Sita got fascinated by the golden deer, and we all know the consequence of that. The golden deer has its own method of dragging and carrying away Ananda. And the ultimate result was Sita lost Rama for a long time. Similarly, even though the Atmananda is with me all the time, the golden deer of this world of objects, the varieties of objects, that they can trap me, and therefore I have to be very, very alert. And Krishna uses one more word, vipaschitaha. Even for a vipaschitaha means a learned person. So vipaschitaha api, even for a learned person. He has studied the Gita, he has studied the scriptures, but even for such an informed person, in a moment of weakness, he can be distracted, and therefore let us be alert in our journey from prajna to sthita prajna. This is what Krishna is warning in this sloka. And in the next sloka, Krishna advises Arjuna that under these circumstances, what needs to be done logically. He therefore says, Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. The Anvaya is Sanyamya sarvani tani yuktaha asita matparaha hi prajna tasya yasya indriyani vashe pratishtita. Yasya indrani, okay, you can change this also. Yasya indrani hi prajna yasya indrani vashe tasya, sorry, hi yasya indriyani vashe tasya prajna pratishtita. You can change it also. Anvaya. Sanyamya, having restrained. Sarvani tani, all those. Here all those refers to sense organs. Yuktaha asita, the yogi. Yukta refers to yogi. Asita means should remain. Matparaha, with the thought of me as the supreme goal. Here me does not, Krishna does not me himself as body, mind, soul. He is talking about me as moksha, as ananda. Matparaha. So with the thought of the Brahmananda as the supreme goal, he, because prajna tasya, the knowledge of that person, yasya, whose indriyani, sense organs, vashe, are under control, pratishtita, becomes firm. So having restrained all those sense organs, the self-controlled should remain committed to the pursuit of me or pursuit of moksha as the supreme goal. Paramam padam, because the knowledge of that person whose sense organs are controlled becomes firm. So we'll see the details of this sloka, understand this sloka in the next class. Okay, I'll stop here. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you. Very nice.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thanks a lot. Yes, any questions, comments, observations?
No, it was very practical and I think it was very nice, very, very nicely explained the day-to-day happenings in one's life. The anger comes, I mean, your habits don't leave you that easily. I mean, you may leave it, but it still lingers in the mind, which is true. I mean,
It's very true.
I have personal experiences.
Yeah.
It is there, and the sense control is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
If you are, I mean, being a grahastha and practicing this, even if you are controlling, I think
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
people
That's why,
around you, the
that's why
chances around you.
develop this for a grihastha is more difficult actually. A sannyasi is easy. He will just go away from the scene. Being in the scene and trying to outgrow all that problem, I wouldn't say problems, all the obligations which surround you, but still you have no choice but to fulfill those obligations. But doing that with an attitude of detachment is very extremely difficult. I can tell you, even during the day, if you happen to manage it somehow, put up a show that, okay, I'm like this. When you go to sleep at night, those thoughts will start haunting you. This is very practical, rather. So it's not an easy path, as I told in one of the earlier classes. It's like walking on a sword, You must walk, but you must not allow the edge of the sword to cut your leg. So it is a difficult thing. But what Krishna here talks about is all practical only, rather. And it's not easy. That we have to understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would that be the reason why children are straight away inducted into Shankaracharya Mutt, etc.?
Yes. It is easy for people who have attended Gurukulam because this kind of an attitude, adjustment with everything around is all, 12 years, 15 years in the Gurukulam. Your expectations and this thing, everything becomes a karma yoga attitude for you, rather. That attitude is developed. Unfortunately, in our present system of education, it's become very difficult, rather.
I'm attached to it.
That means you go directly short circuit from brahmacharyam to sannyasi straight away.
No,
Short circuit.
actually speaking, it is not that way. What happens in Gurukulam is it is training you for a life in the Grihastha Ashrama without the stress and strains that we undergo in the Grihastha Ashrama who do not have such training. That is how it is. A few of them, selected few, may straight away go skip Grihastha Ashrama and go to Sannyasa. But the main purpose of the Vedic Gurukulam is to prepare them for facing all challenges in the Grihastha Ashrama, and the husband and wife together complementing each other's efforts in order to face that challenge and also contribute to their might to the society. This was the whole purpose of this Gurukulam. Now, whenever we go to school, in any school, where is the contribution to the society being talked about? Even if it is being talked about, they will do some social distinct, take photographs and not put Facebook here, there. Purpose is not a serious helping the society, but just to show and because some students will get some additional marks for that and all that, they will do all these things. That is the artificial world we are living in. But we have an opportunity, if you know all these things, we have an opportunity to manage. Honestly speaking, for me also, the more I teach, the more I feel that what is it that 2-3 things I should start doing. There is an action plan which develops rather. And it is helping me personally, actually, a lot, in fact. Yeah, it is a lot. When I studied, all these things, it did not go in my head like this. When I am now teaching, I am reading everything 2 times, 3 times and all that. What Puja Swamiji has said, what Swami Paramatmananda said, what Swami Sadatmananda said. So much of reading that I am doing, that I am seeing the pattern, how one should approach this life. That is personally helping me. That is why even if one student is there, I will still continue these classes till it is possible for me. I am gaining a lot through these classes. Honestly, let me tell you, a lot.
A teacher, apart from imparting knowledge to the students, I think he or she gains a lot over a period of
I am experiencing it. I am getting a lot, in fact. And it is making, at least from my perspective, making some visible changes in my own lifestyle, in my own thinking, in my own approach to relationships and all that. It is making a difference. That's my perspective. I don't know other people. I have not had the courage to ask them whether it is making a difference to them. But from my perspective, I feel there is a change. Slow. I mean, it's not very big, but some slow changes are happening.
Absolutely. I am attached to an institution which gives early intervention for children with intellectual disabilities. When you go there, it removes all your ego, because when you see those children, it's absolutely sensitized. But with all that, when after doing whole day and then being with the children, helping them, all that, you come back home and then you're back to yourself. But at least it has taught me to a lot of things. You are able to see a different perspective when you see those children who are absolutely innocent, and they have a great. They're innocent, and that innocence gives you a lot of strength.
That's true. So that is why, when we have such experiences, what is important is we come back and we start reflecting on that, instead of, mechanically getting into the mundane life that we lead otherwise. So spend some time in reflecting on that, and that reflection itself will slowly make your, attitude, your mind, bring those changes in the mind. So that is what it is. It's not easy, but at the same time, it is not doable also. It is doable. There are people who have done it. So we should take inspiration from them.
Thank you very much,
Guruji. Thank you very much, Guruji.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you very much, Guruji.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you,
you next
Guruji.
Saturday. Thank you.
Dhanyawada, Guruji.
Dhanyawad.
Dhanyawada.
Dhanyawad. Thank you.